Yagorath is killing Paladins, or at least recent tank design is. She is partly responsible for the recent decline in players in the past year, but to really dive deep into why this is a problem as a whole, we have to talk about drafting, or the concept of picking champions in Paladins ranked mode. Quick thing before we get into the Yag video, I wanted to let everyone know we have started a second YouTube channel known as Vex30 VODs. Check up in the I section above or down below in the description for that channels, or pinned in the comment. We started this because I know everyone on here on YouTube does not want to go over to Twitch to watch my live streams or check out the VODs, and I completely understand that. So I made this channel so you can go watch the whole VODs over there and check out all the amazing content we do. So be sure to go sub to that channel, Vex30 VODs, and I'll see you in the Yagorath video. Drafting in Paladins comes from another popular genre, the MOBA. The drafting system is there to help balance the meta. The ban phase of the draft helps players pick and choose what they don't want to play against, while the pick phase does two great things: stops mirror matchups and allows for counterpicking. Now, a mirror matchup is pretty much if you see a Yag on both teams, that is a mirror matchup, and you only see that in the casual mode of Paladins. Counterpicking is the general concept that if you see, let's use Ying for example, you should immediately think of Grok, because Grok does very well against Ying's clones, since Grok can use them as a free bounce target. Now, with the ban system, there are certain things you can do to manipulate the draft in your favor as first pick, especially if you want a certain champion. Let's use a few examples here. If you are an Ashe player, you probably want to look to ban Khan or Makoa because they can displace you out of your ultimate or your dash. While if you're a Ying player, you want to ban something like Grok, as we previously stated. This concept also plays right into Yagorath players' hand. They can very easily ban out, let's just say, Tyra and Furia, which are quote-unquote counters, we'll discuss this later, against Yagorath, and they can easily be banned out, and there would be no, again, quote-unquote counters to Yag in the game. Now, there are still ways to win that match versus Yagorath, but it comes down to draft, and a lot of players have no idea how to draft against her, which again, we will discuss later in this video how to do said thing. Let's get this out of the way first. Sure, we talked about drafting for the first part of the video, but ranked is not the real issue with Yagorath, it's casuals. Now, again, I want to preface this and say, when I say Yagorath, I do hate the champion and the design, but I am mainly coming after the design of Yagorath and very specific parts of it that we will talk about later. We needed to talk about drafting first to show the complexities of trying to counter Yag. But when it comes to casuals, if you don't have the perfect comp or a counter champion, you are looking down the barrel of a giant worm mom who has the very high probability of beating you into a pulp. I don't know if you know this, but Paladins is not Overwatch. Shocking, I know. You can't change champions mid-game. So if the other team has a Yag, you don't have anything, it's time to AFK and let them have their free W, because even if you try, you're not going to win. Now, I'm not endorsing AFKing. Don't AFK in your games. Play it out until the end. But sometimes it feels like you would rather just AFK to get the game over with in that situation. This, in essence, reduces the new player experience and hurts the returning player rate, because when you face impossible odds that you had no control over, it makes you feel like you want to give up and go play another game. When the player feels like the control is out of their hands, they will not want to play. As simple as that. Players in situations like this need to feel an emphasis on that word, like they have a choice in the matter. But with casuals, they have no choice, and they give it all up to RNG. Now, casuals inherently is not a bad thing. Randomizing the other team and not knowing what they're going to pick is fine. But having champions in the game that require specific champions to counter them really are not the play and not overall good tank design. Now, I did state earlier about the counter to Yag, and let's talk about that now. Which there is a counter to Yag, but it's complex. Now, I was writing part of this script on stream over on my Twitch, Vex30, and I was talking to another high-level ranked player in North America, Leighton, and he talked about a draft that counters Yag, and honestly, it is the best possible scenario. This comp consists of a solo tank, 2 mobile DPS, 2 supports, or 1 support and 3 DPS. Do you see the issue here? I'm going to give you a second and think about it. First of all, who runs a solo tank? Nobody. You can check realmstats.gg on the team comp page and see the highest played solo tank comp has a 44% win rate. The counter in general is so bad that people won't even think to run it. And again, this is Paladins, not Overwatch. Paladins champions are not designed to need very specific characters to counter them. Let's use an example in Overwatch. When you have a champion like Tracer, you need to pick a Cassidy, someone who has a stun to stop her hypermobility. In Paladins, that's typically not a thing that there's enough counters in the game. Let's just say for Drogoz, all he really needs is someone who's hit scan like Androxus or Leanne to counter him. You don't need a very specific counter to do that. Now let's talk about why I actually hate Yag and the recent tank design. This section of the video could be an hour long if I wanted it to be. There are so many things I hate about Yag that I could rant for days, and in fact, I do rant for days over on my Twitch Vex30. Shameless, I swear. And it's okay. I'm okay being shameless about my plugs. But she really is something I deeply hate about Paladins. But let's get into the core of what makes Yag broken. First, we need to talk about the concept of EHP, or effective health points. This, by definition, is the hypothetical amount of hit points a champion has when the incoming damage is reduced by cards, healing, or items. Yag's EHP is mainly caused by her unreal amount of DR, or damage reduction. She has 30% DR base while planted. Yagorath has 2 modes. She can either be rolling around like a roly-poly, or she could be sitting there planted spitting on people. While in that planted form, she has 30% damage reduction. This alone is a problem, and I would dare to say one of the main problems. With Yag's base health of 6,000 right now, but it is changing to 5,750 next patch. She has an EHP of 7,800 this patch, and next patch she has an EHP of 7,475. And again, let's note that definition of EHP. It's not taking account for the healing she's receiving. It's not taking account for cards she's buying, which she could buy Veteran and Haven, increase that EHP. This is just taking account for the 30% base DR she has. This also isn't mentioning her hardening ability that gives her another 25% DR on top of the 30%. Now, when you have 2 instances of something, there is diminishing returns that if you have 30% and 25% of something, let's just say damage reduction, one number is going to be reduced. I believe it is the lower amount. So that 25 is more like 20%. So it's more closer to 50 or 47% damage reduction, but it is still a high amount. Now, you might not say this is a big problem because look at champions like Rom, who has an extremely high HP pool. But Rom does not have permanent DR in his kit. And it's all based around using his abilities, in his talent, or in his deck. And this rings true for other champions like Ruckus. Ruckus is really good right now. Now, he's not played by everyone because he is a higher skill cap champion, but any of Ruckus's damage reduction comes from using his abilities. This is the main reason why Yag is so broken and Rom and Ruckus are not. DR is something that cannot be countered in Paladins. Percent health based damage is even reduced by DR. Nothing can counter damage reduction. This is the issue with putting it in a base kit permanently and passively while just being planted. I would rather see Yag have 7,500 base HP but no DR. Honestly. At least champions like Furia or Tyra can be a real counter to her. There is another elephant in the room, Azan. He was broken on release just like Yag, and was for a few patches. But he is in a more balanced state now. I wouldn't say fully balanced, but a more balanced state. Why? Because his built-in DR is only 20% and requires you to have a full passive bar, which is reduced by using your abilities. Also, the fact that you have only a base HP of 4,500 greatly reduces his passive effective HP to 5,400. If he can keep his passive at 100%, that is. Now, he does have cards that give you more DR, but again, these require you to do something to get the DR, while Yag does not. Do you see what I mean now? I could go on for days about Yag. Not to mention, Yag makes zoning almost impossible with her rocket car ability that zooms through everyone. Didn't Io have her doggo nerfed because it could cap and you had 5-man zoning issues and it broke the game? Yagorath is the same idea. She zooms through everybody and breaks the concept of zoning. You can't actually dismount Yag or stop her. Sure, you can CC her, but hard CC, like a pip chicken, actually doesn't work against her, so you can only hopefully stun her while she's zooming by you. I could go on all day about her, but the main takeaway is that DR has no counters, and putting passive DR that won't have you work for anything is a massive issue in tank design. When you look at champions like Torvald, champions like, I want to use this one actually, Atlas. When you look at champions like Torvald or a champion like Atlas, characters that do not have traditional shields like a Fernando, they are still decent because and not broken. When you look at Torvald, the way he works is he doesn't have an actual shield to put in front of him, but he has it on his health bar and can recharge it, which is a lot of shield. But guess what? Torvald's shield has a counter, which is Wrecker. Now, I bring up Atlas because he doesn't have a traditional shield, but he still does have a shield. The reason why Atlas has been so predominant in the meta for the past 2 years since he was released is because his shield has no counter. When things have no counter in games, it makes it unfun to play against and makes balancing that character hard. But Atlas is not broken because his shield is uncounterable, but he is killable. As soon as his shield is on cooldown, he can be killed. Yag's damage reduction doesn't go on cooldown. Azan's damage reduction doesn't go on cooldown. They don't require you to use abilities. Yag's does not. You'd have to just sit there planted and killing someone. That's the issue. Get rid of passive damage reduction and the game would be in a far better spot. Now, a massive pet peeve of mine is people who rant and talk about how much they hate something but give zero solutions. So here are my solutions for fixing Yag. Number 1, power shifter. Greatly reduce her damage reduction and put the power into either her damage, mobility, swap time, ultimate. There's a ton of things you could do, but take away her damage reduction and put that power into something else. Completely get rid of her passive DR in planted mode and give her slightly more HP. Just give her more HP and get rid of the damage reduction because now percent base HP will work against her and not be reduced by DR. Change her passive while planted from gaining 30% DR into gaining, let's just say, bonus healing while planted, or gain a shield every second she is planted, or something that already has counters in the game. After 3 straight patches of nerfs, we have not seen a dent in her win rate. She is still going to dominate the realm until Evil Mojo sees the issue with passive damage reduction and how unfun for players it is. As a player, we want to feel like we have a sense of control over our games. But when there are things that we cannot counter and have zero control over, it makes us want to quit the game and never return. This is why Yagorath is killing Paladins. She takes the player experience and makes them feel like they have no choice against her. that if you want to win, you either have to get lucky and pick one of the two semi-counters to her in casuals or ranked, or have the perfect draft to take down this monstrosity of a champion and honestly an overall poor tank design. I understand where Evil Mojo is coming from, and I respect developers that take risks. Taking the risk on Yagorath was honestly well worth it, but there has to be a point where you say enough is enough and make a change that has to be done. Giving characters no shields is a risky thing to do, and it is hard to come up with ways to make them still relevant without putting a shield in front of them. But they have done it before with characters like Ruckus, with characters like Torvald, and honestly, they could be doing better with this. Evil Mojo developers, please put away the ego and admit fault and admit wrong and make the change to Yagorath and make the change to future tanks that has to be done. Stop giving them passive damage reduction and let's make this game better. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and honestly, this took me far too long to write and record. A lot of stuff going on in my personal life and professional life was keeping me away from this video. So I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with your fellow Yag mains or haters. I love you all, and I hope you enjoy your day, night, evening, morning, dawn, dusk, or whatever it is where you live. And I will see you in the next one. Later.